Hello and welcome to tonight's episode of The Cheese Room. I am your host, Becky, tonight, and we are here to talk about the Everton game. I've got two great guests with me today. Jack, all the way from America. How are you today, Jack?
I'm not too bad. I have a lovely day outside. It's a warm February afternoon. The sun is shining, so I'm taking, that's a good sign for the start of the week. The weekend was a little, I have to admit that the football wasn't quite up to what I was hoping for, but we're here to talk about it. We'll get into it, and I'm glad to be with you very much so. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. And HG in Austria, wearing your Austria supporters top. How are you today?
That's right. Today is it. I'm all right. Today's my dad's birthday, so I had a chat with him earlier. Same birthday, same year as Sven Goran Eriksson. So I think that's basically my dad's excuse for thinking he had a shot with Ulrike Johnson. That name will mean nothing to Jack, but still, going back 30 years now. But yeah, today's been good. It's half term for us this week, so I'm off. Yay!
I've still got 2 weeks off till half term, but I know some people in the south are off next week because they're doing a training session, I think, at the ground on Thursday. On Thursday, and that's not my half term, but I know some people in the south, and I was thinking about it this morning. That might be Sonny's first game back, but first training session back. Right, let's get to it. So yeah, the Everton game. I was there. It was a home game for me, as the crow flies. Apart from Tranmere, I think it's certainly my closest Premier League ground. I had a 30-minute train ride and a 10-minute cab journey over to Stanley Park. So I know anybody who's watching, welcome along. Thanks for being with us. As usual, if you can hit the like and subscribe. Anybody in the chat, please tell us if you made the long journey up from the south. I think without train strikes, it's just 12:30 is just a hellish kickoff time. I think a bad enough 12:30 kickoff. Anyway, when you've got a train strike, I had people messaging me saying I've been up since 4 and I'm on the coach since 5. And like I said, for me, it was quite a leisurely start. But we've got three consecutive Saturday home games now, where I'll be getting up at 6 a.m. So it'll flip back soon when I'm traveling down to Tottenham. But yeah, it was quite nice having a bit of a lie-in and getting over there.
Is it really 3 in a row? So I mean, we've got Brighton next, right?
Yeah.
And
then Wolves.
Wolves.
Then Wolves. Then because Chelsea got through to the semi-final of the Carabao Cup or the final, whatever it is, that game has moved. So it's then, I think it's Palace the week after that.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it is. It's three. And then today they've announced some of the away fixtures, haven't they? Villa's moved to a Sunday, and Luton has
has it?
Yeah, but the Luton game has stayed at 3 o'clock. That's right. But the Fulham and the Villa games have moved. Yeah.
Exactly. The two away games, and it's good. I mean, Villa was always going to get moved because I think they have a European game the Thursday before.
Yeah.
But a 1 o'clock kickoff. As a Spurs fan, I think we should be okay with that. That can't help Villa if they're playing Thursday night away, and then they have to get home for a Sunday lunchtime. But yeah, that's a month from now. But still,
it's a while away. It is.
It could have been worse for Spurs.
Yeah, it's nice not for it to be another Friday night 8 o'clock kickoff. Got to be honest, or Monday night 8 o'clock, because I can't do any of those. And I know a lot of people who do go there. Right. Okay. So Saturday, 12:30 at Everton. I did hear the lineups. I think the message came through when we were in the articles. I suspected on the train going over that they would play more or less the team that finished the game against City, but with the exception of Maddison and Bentancur, if that made sense. So I thought that Kulusevski possibly may not start, and then it turned out that he didn't, and Skip didn't, and Højbjerg and Johnson started. HG, what did you make of Spurs' lineup?
Look, it's not the one I would have gone for. I'm not just saying that now because the result wasn't the one we wanted, but I just feel as if, like, Everton might be where they are in the table, but we all know they've lost 10 points. We all know that they are a pretty good, strong mid-table side, despite the fact that they hadn't scored in a while. And I just thought we needed a bit more ability to hold it. So personally, I'd have gone for Kulusevski instead of Johnson. I've always thought Højbjerg is a better option in midfield than Skip. Maybe not as a 6, but still, that's another question. So, like, I wasn't massively disappointed because I know that the way Spurs want to be is that we want to have people who we think can score. We want to play attacking football, and there will be lots of people out there who think that Johnson is a more attacking threat than Kulusevski, and that playing Johnson and Werner high up the pitch wide would be a good thing to score goals. So it's nice to know that maybe 7 or 8 of the team is set, and it's just a couple of people that will change depending on the game or maybe depending on the opponent. But I wasn't massively disappointed either way. It just wouldn't have been what I wanted.
Jack, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I'd echo that. It's the same. I mean, I'm sure we're going to get into wing play tonight. I'd be shocked if we didn't. So the fact that Kula, him getting some rest, I'm fine with that. If Ange wants to play Johnson and get him in there, I had no issues with it. I agree. I think Pierre is a better option than Skip in most situations, depending on the game. Particularly, I think this one was an example of that, given the way Everton like to muck it up through the middle. And so I think Pierre is the right choice. I've been a little surprised. I know that Bentancur is still probably coming back into like mental match fitness, if not physical fitness. And I just keep waiting for the two of them to play better together, because obviously they had a long run of games together. And, we can talk about the style of play. We can talk about all the things we want back into the Conte era, but the two of them worked pretty well, and having to control what was often uncontrollable in the midfield, just the two of them. So I don't think they've really quite found themselves in this system very well so far, but I don't think anything about the lineup surprised me. And as HG said, I think 7, if not 8, picked themselves when fit. And when Son's back, you go to probably 9 at that point.
We'll come on to that afterwards, really, because I had lots of discussions with people after the game about where Son will fit when he comes back in. I agree with Højbjerg playing. I think we knew that Everton were going to be physical. We know that the way Dyche sets his teams up to play, the kind of the football they're going to play is going to be long balls. And, although it was great to see, we've almost got like a kind of touch wood, kind of, a solidified kind of back four now, haven't we, with Porro, Udogie, Romero and Van de Ven. They knew they were going to get lots of balls over the top, and there was going to be kind of like a physical. So I do think possibly Højbjerg was slightly maybe more suited to it than Skip. The thing that I really like being in the ground is that I didn't know anything about the protest that was planned. And when I went to my seat, my friend next to me went, "Oh, they're going to have a protest." And I was like, "Oh, right, okay." I seem to remember someone waving a yellow thing at me when we were at the ground. But scoring first, it was a kind of, this was the one, remind me, this was the Udogie one, wasn't it? When Udogie ran to the byline and kind of pulled it back, and Richarlison kind of volleyed it in. Those of you that have been to Goodison, and we've got, I think, one more season of being at Goodison, unless they get relegated, of course, before their new stadium, I had quite a good position where I was. I have to say I was quite lucky. There weren't too many pillars in the way, and the roof wasn't kind of in the way, but the pillar kind of was where Richarlison was, but I could tell that it was Richarlison that had scored it. And then when I got back and watched Match of the Day at night, I didn't realise that he'd volleyed it. But going back to Udogie, that's another game where he's kind of driven forward, pulled it back, and it was a lovely finish from Richarlison. And it was one of those games where you usually kind of expect him to be either in the number 9 role to kind of tap them in or to head a goal, but to see him kind of pull off the 6-yard box and hit one with his, and a volley was a really lovely kind of way to start. I was just a bit disappointed that we didn't really kick on from that. It was kind of, Everton's almost kind of invited the pressure on Everton, but it was a great way to start. HG, you agree?
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we done that this season now? We've scored a load of early goals, and it was a relatively simple goal too. Like, it wasn't as if we did too much that was outrageous. The ball was out wide to Werner. Udogie made the run. The ball's round the back. Udogie's got space, and like we've got one striker in the box. Like, we're all sitting there on TV thinking, okay, kick it to Richarlison. He's in position. And then it went in, and we're like, okay, well, that was very easy. Like, it didn't even feel like Ange ball at its best. It just felt like Everton kind of let us do it. And you're right. After that, you always think, okay, Spurs, now kick on. Like, obviously, it was the wake-up call that Everton needed, which didn't help us. And sometimes scoring early doesn't help us because it means the other team are suddenly, kick-started to really go for it. It would be much nicer to score with 3 minutes to go, probably. But it felt like, okay, Spurs, that's the perfect early start. It doesn't really matter how the other team have done it. We've got a goal within 5 minutes. You can't ask for more. It was just, after that point, Everton started to, harry and hustle and make it difficult for us. And I don't really remember. I mean this. I don't really remember Pickford making too many saves. Maybe one or two in each half. But it wasn't as if we were peppering Everton with chances, and we weren't dominating in the way that Ange would have wanted us to. I mean, it's not even about attacking all the time. We've got to have the ball. We've got to win the ball, and we struggled in the first half. And Everton, obviously, they got the equalizer and probably deserved it at that point.
17th time we scored first this season. That was one of the things I wrote down when I looked at the game on Saturday. Yeah, Jack, the equaliser. So came from a corner, and if I remember rightly, do forgive me if I'm wrong in the chat. Did they have a similar corner before they equalised, where they were kind of hustling on Vicario? Yeah,
yes.
That was my end, even though it was the closest end. I don't really remember much about it. So was it Harrison? They put Harrison, didn't they, on Vicario?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they started with Tarkowski and they switched to Harrison.
Yeah, what did you make of their equaliser?
Well, I mean, so this is the debate that keeps going on, and even on our own pod, there was disagreement on the show about whether it's a foul or not. So I actually, since I don't get to go to the games, I actually got up this morning because I had some extra time and I actually rewatched the match. It's less dispassion, less passion involved, and it's a little bit easier to see. And they were targeting Vicario in the first half. As I said, they started with Tarkowski. And then they switched tactics because they got a foul called on Vicario midway through the first half, which actually, when you watch it back, I don't see the foul. But Oliver blew a foul, and so they switched tactics at that point. And that what they were doing is Harrison would start around the 6-7 yards out, and then as the ball comes in, he goes in to screen and obstruct Vicario. And they should have scored on one earlier than that. And the one that they actually did score on, the debate is, was it a foul? And in my opinion, by the textbook definition of obstruction, it's a foul. I mean, in other words, he backs into the player. He's not trying to play the ball with the sole purpose of obstructing the player from getting to the ball. And so, by my reading of the rules, it's a foul. And that is often not called, particularly on corners, but usually it's not called among field players. What goalkeepers, we've often said, get way too much protection. Well, I've always said a lot of times they get way too much protection. You just touch them and it's a foul. And for some reason, right now, it seems that Vicario is not being protected in the same way that I've seen other goalkeepers protected. So, is it a foul? It's close. I can't say that. I wouldn't think that VAR would have looked at it. I think they did look at it for a second, but there's just not enough in it. And to complain too much about it is probably not really worth the time. But technically, I think it's a foul. The real issue is, what do Spurs need to do differently to prevent that from happening? I mean, that's really, how do you counter the tactic? You can't expect the referee to bail you out. And what was really interesting is they completely stopped doing it in the second half. Now, I watched it this morning. Not one time did they get into the six and try to obstruct them. So the only thing I'm wondering is, did something at halftime? Did the coaching staff, the Spurs, talk to the fourth official? Did the fourth official talk to Oliver and start calling about this? Because they didn't try it one time. I mean, he won several crosses several balls in the air unopposed, and I don't know why. I'm very curious about it, why they stopped doing it.
Yeah, because I watched it back yesterday, and in commentary they said the same thing, and how it was kind of almost like a tactic that they stopped doing. The thing that for me, for the equaliser, is that there was a lot of ball watching, and we could probably debate as whether it to the letter of the law, whether it a foul or not, and like we did with City on Friday. I just think everybody's sort of a bit flat-footed, and it's like a free header in isn't it? And someone's just there to kind of tap it in, and that's what happened at City as well. And it's that I think needs kind of. I've kind of thought about it, do we need Spurs players standing in front of the player that's in front of Vicario? And then do you run into the kind of, is it handbags and arms everywhere and fouls and possible penalties and all of this? But at the moment, it's like you said, I just feel like he's kind of being targeted, and he's gone from, the reaction is best keeper, best sign-in to, now he's a liability, which is ridiculous. But it's just because it's 2 matches in a row, isn't it, where he seems to be kind of quite vulnerable in that sort of situation. What was your making of it?
It's a foul. It is a foul. It's funny that the one against City, I personally didn't really think was a foul.
I didn't think so either.
Right, but like I'm like if an attacking player is going for the ball and the keeper's going for the ball and it's a battle in the air, then you have a choice. Is it a foul or not? Then the referee has a choice to make, I feel like. Right? Because sometimes defenders will put their arms in front of the way of the keeper and stop them from catching it. That's a foul. But if they're just jumping for the ball, I don't think that's a foul. Right? However, if you have no intention of playing the ball, it is a foul. Like you are stopping the keeper from doing what he not even what he wants to do, but you have no intention of doing anything apart from stopping your opponent, and that is a foul. So this is the bit that I don't get. Like, I mean, Jack's right. We've seen decisions go for other teams' keepers that should never have gone that way, and so like I don't want a situation where everything gets called a foul, but I want to have an idea of saying, well, hang on a second, like. If you are shown to have not had any intention of going for the ball yourself, it is a foul. That's the rule. Yeah. Everything else can be subjective, right? I understand that there's always going to be some kind of subjective idea as to what a foul is, but if you're not going for the ball, it's a foul. Like in the same way that there was one late on in the game where Dragusin, I think, had come on and just decides to kind of lean into Beto and knock him over when he doesn't need to do it. Right now, to me. That's a foul.
It was a foul. Yep, it was. It was absolutely. He went out of his way into his path and knocked him down. Yeah, it's a foul.
Okay, so like again, like you can make it difficult for someone, but you can't knock them over. That's a foul. So it doesn't feel like much needs to change. But I mean, Jack's right. As far as Spurs are concerned, if this is how it is, we have to deal with that. We can't just sit there and say that, oh well, because that even if we play Brighton. And the Brighton aren't that kind of team, but they'll have seen that if they're going to get something from it, they'll try it. Every team will try it because the idea now is that Vicario can't hack it, which clearly isn't true either. It's just a weird state of affairs. And like before I move on, like I saw a comment from Kevin, right? Why don't we put? I think the one for that goal, I think Richarlison had him. I think he was Richarlison's man, but as Jack said, as soon as the cross comes in, Harrison runs to the keeper. Like, so Richarlison doesn't follow him, but in theory,
is this for the second equalizer?
No, for the first one. It's for that goal. Like Harrison doesn't start on the keeper like they had done before. Right. As Jack said, he moved away, and I think Richarlison was marking him at that point. But again, Richarlison, maybe he's ball watching, like Becky said. But the point is that we didn't have someone go with him to protect the keeper. But it might just be that we say, you know what, we're just going to protect the keeper. And the other guys can stand where they're going to be, and we just need to make sure that no one comes in to make things difficult for our keeper. But yeah, it sucked because it shouldn't have been given. But from now on, it's on Spurs. We've got to do something about it.
Yeah, I'm just kind of reading through my notes that I made of the game before that, and Mickey van der Ven's name keeps appearing up quite a lot. But the couple of things I've written is that I remember one where he was kind of in a race with Calvert-Lewin and he slid in and it was offside. And then one with Mykolenko and then he was offside. And there's these sort of, but Jack, what did you make of Van der Ven and his supersonic speed?
Every time he does it, I'm terrified because all I can see is him pulling up lame. I mean, I'm serious. I every time he does it, I mean, the time he ran, who was it he ran down? They were offsides in the end.
Calvert-Lewin, I think.
Was it Calvert-Lewin? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so. I just, every time he does it, I'm just holding my breath because you just worry, if he hadn't have done it earlier in the season, I know he's done it when we played in Germany, but it's just remarkable. And the commentators on the NBC broadcast are just amazed. They're just watching him run down players. And again, Calvert-Lewin is not a speed merchant. Jack Harrison, he runs down, is not a speed merchant, as it were, but he's starting 5 yards behind him in a lot of situations, and he's coming through. And the other thing that's really I've picked up on this recently is his timing on slide tackles is remarkable. I mean, that's not a skill set that every defender has. It's to time that in just a way that you come through perfectly, clip the ball. There's no chance of a foul. He does it really, really well. I just worry, of course, he's got to play the way he's going to play. If he's going to rip the hamstring, then he's going to do it. I can't really worry about it. But that was every time he did it, that's what my thought was, is, oh, please don't pull your hamstring.
And what was really lovely from our point of view is that I was saying to all the Spurs fans that were there in the first half, even probably after they equalised, we almost sang a song for every single player, and the Mickey van der Ven song was being sung frequently. is that if you're going to go to ground, you've got to get it right. And he goes to ground, not in a kind of Sanchez way, but in a way that you just know he's going to get on the end of the ball. And the away fans love that sort of thing. So it's such a shame. I was watching something yesterday and they were saying, everyone will come onto the equaliser, second equaliser, but I think it kind of is hidden the fact that Van der Ven had such an amazing game. Obviously, Richarlison had a good game as well, but because it felt like a defeat, it felt like we'd lost. He had such a good game, but we conceded 2 goals, and neither of them were great goals either, as well. But to come out and say that our defenders have had a really good game sounds a bit kind of discombobulated, doesn't it? Because both goals and the Brentford goals that we conceded were not great goals either. We're not being done by worldies. What did you make of Van der Ven, HG?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Like, it's 3 league games now since they both were back in the side, and it's 2 goals a game we're conceding. Like, United scored twice, Brentford scored twice, and that isn't what you want from those two. And like, is it really that the midfield doesn't have Bissouma? I can't believe that either, right? Is it that other teams are maybe taking their chances, getting a bit of luck? That's more it to me. Like, again, like Everton, I don't feel created that much either. Like 2 goals from some set pieces. It's our own stupidity maybe for giving the foul away at the end. But again, like Van der Ven plays really well. I think Romero plays really well, but his speed isn't as needed as maybe Van der Ven's was. And a lot of teams, they do want to attack down the left, especially because they feel like Udogie likes to go forward. So it feels as if Van der Ven quite often is the last man for that reason. The ball is played down his side a lot. But yeah, he's a great player. It's weird. Like, I remember when we signed him, people always said, well, he's going to need time to get used to the system. But like, as defenders, I don't think you do in Ange Ball. I think in Ange Ball, it's a case of, look, you two are on your own quite a lot, so figure it out, just mop up. But it's really no different than what we've seen Liverpool do over the years. It's not too different from what we've seen. Even the Barcelona teams under Guardiola, they had a midfielder at playing centre-back, because the idea was, like, we're going to have the ball. You're not going to be defending that much. We're going to have the ball, and we need your passing skills. So to have Romero and Van der Ven, despite conceding 6, is not bad. It's just, is it just those half chances are kind of going against us right now?
Yeah, and I was reading something yesterday about how Vicario's got 5 clean sheets. Pickford before has got 8 clean sheets, but it's something like since December we haven't had a clean sheet. There's like a run now that's going that we haven't had a clean sheet, and to the point that I can't even remember one.
I think Forest was the last one. And
on the Friday night, 2-0, before Christmas.
But in many cases,
15th December that was.
Yeah, but even the one I remember, we got a clean sheet at Luton when Bissouma got sent off. Luton had chances in that game. Like every team has had chances against Spurs. Maybe the Fulham home game, I don't remember Fulham really doing anything at all that night. But generally speaking, Spurs give up pretty good chances, and Vicario's bailed us out, or teams have had poor finishing. But that hasn't really changed. So I don't quite know what we can do to stop that, apart from maybe get better at holding the ball and keeping the ball and playing in the other team's half.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because the last 4 goals, 2 were basically turnovers from Destiny, and 2 were set pieces. And clearly one of them, I think, I agree with you, was a foul. Yeah. So, Everton otherwise didn't create much. I mean, they had that one not a half chance, it was a really good chance. I don't remember the kid's name. He came in as a sub.
Yeah,
and he tries to hit it with the outside of his boot. When he had a lot more time, he could have settled it and banged it home. But he just panicked a little bit. So that was really their only good chance. I mean, we had 3 very solid scoring chances in the second half that worked Pickford really well. You had the Porro on the near post where he cuts across the ball and slices it. You had the bad clearance where Maddison hits a left-footed volley, and then of course you had the chance that Richie had. Kulu plays him in after winning the ball back, plays him in down the right, and he goes to the far post. And good save from Pickford. We had 6 shots on target. The problem is it's just not enough. With the chances that we concede, we need to generate a lot more scoring chances. I mean, we had open play. We had almost 1 goal XG type thing, and that's just not going to be enough. We're just going to have to do a lot more. And controlling the ball in the midfield is part of it, but also playing without. We're basically, if you actually look at the stats, we're playing with 9 a lot of the time because we're not using 2 players, or 2 players aren't getting involved.
Which 2 would those be?
they play in the left and right, really high up the pitch. I don't know what the
Okay.
position's called, but I think it's a winger, but I'm not sure.
Because I mean, this is it. Like, I mean, Darren makes a really good point here, right? The idea that we're not controlling games, absolutely true, right? But you look at the midfield. Okay, Sarr probably could have started, but was obviously on the bench because of AFCON, just got back. But Maddison was there, who's, again, I don't think anywhere near fully fit. And Bissouma obviously can't play because he was still at AFCON. So, but Bentancur is not a bad player, and Højbjerg's not a bad player, and Maddison, again, if the three of them together had the chance to really work, then fine. But I think we've seen in recent games that Porro can't get on the ball in midfield. Teams have kind of figured out that, you know, if you stop him from getting the ball, then you kind of stop Spurs building play. Udogie has had runs from deep that have led to goals, but in midfield, he's not really there because, like, I know Man City did that with their wide players. They kind of brought them in and said, right, like, stick with the fullbacks when they go into midfield. And as Jack said, like, at the start of the season, we had Richarlison or Son or Perisic or Solomon and then Kulusevski on the other side that, again, would come into midfield and offer what they call a box midfield now. The idea that you've got your two that sit deep and then the two that would come in. So we had a lot more options. And when we play with wingers, with Werner, or even with Son, if Son had been there, like, but if we play with those players that are high up the pitch and say, we want you to stay wide. Like, Werner doesn't come in and help in midfield, and Johnson doesn't come in and help in midfield in the same way that Kulusevski does. Now, that doesn't mean that they're bad players. It just means that we are losing something. And when Everton, again, like, they had a midfield three, it's not as if they're wide. I mean, maybe Harrison would drop back, so they maybe had like a 4-5-1 with. But do you know what I mean? It's not as if they were overloading it massively, but they were winning the ball in midfield a lot. And as Jack said, there are two players, those wingers. If they're not getting involved, then we are losing that battle in midfield, and we will continue to do so every week. And if they're only contributing when we get them the ball, then they have to go forward and really threaten the defenders. And I don't feel either one of them really did that either. So as much as I recognize that the midfield is a problem, I don't just think it's a personnel issue. Like, if Sarr plays the whole game on Saturday, and if Bissouma plays the whole game on Saturday, I still think Everton outwork us and outrun us and win that midfield battle. I think it's more than just the players that are kind of that we need to discuss here.
Yeah, just reading the comments saying about it, there's been lots of changes obviously in midfield each week, because even if you go back to City, Maddison didn't, finish the game. Bentancur. What do you make, Jack? What do you make of Bentancur since he's kind of come back from his second injury? There's quite a lot of talk in the away end about him on Saturday.
It's interesting because I after the game and in our chat groups and online and stuff, there was a lot of criticism coming Bentancur's way for how he played. So I was trying to pay attention when I watched it back, and realistically, he didn't do anything wrong. The problem was he didn't actually impact the game. In other words, he wasn't involved. He wasn't making things happen. So when he got it, he didn't do, I don't recall doing anything wrong, but he's just not, what we're used to is a player that's impacting the game, that's forcing the other team to react and have to adjust to his abilities. He was somewhat of a passenger in the game. It wasn't turning over. I mean, Højbjerg was getting a lot of heat because of his pass accuracy, which actually isn't as bad as it looks, but he just had some critically bad timing for his missed passes that would put us under pressure. But he was a lot more involved, had way more going on, and he was much more active across the pitch. Benny just wasn't on. He just didn't seem like he was in the game, and that's the reason why it's not surprising he came out. 64. I was actually surprised he actually came out in the second half. He just wasn't really into it. So whether he doesn't trust himself or he's still trying to figure out his role in this system and just hadn't had enough time to work, I don't know. But they're simply not quite right.
Yeah, because it's funny, isn't it? We were so desperate for Maddison and Bentancur to play together, and it's not really clicking yet. And I'm seeing about Kulusevski. Obviously, Kulusevski didn't play as long on Saturday, but it's interesting you're saying that about Bentancur. I just felt that the majority of things that went well on Saturday were through Maddison, and it was him that was sort of making the decisions and moving the pass and moving the passes around. And I think reading the comments, I think he has been rushed back. He probably, like I said, we've lost Sarr, we've lost Bissouma. He probably wouldn't be expecting to play as much in the role that he is yet, which is obviously a shame. But let's talk about the second goal for Spurs. So you're saying there about Werner and not being as involved. The one bright part of the play that he did have is he sort of cut it back for Maddison. Maddison then passed it to Richarlison, who scored another goal with his foot. A great kind of finish, and again didn't celebrate the second goal either. Put his shirt, didn't he, over his head, and even Maddison was trying to get him to kind of smile and celebrate. But Maddison's got 6 assists now, all away from home, interestingly enough, and he starts doing that at home. We've got all these 3 home games now, Maddison. We need them at home, please. But yeah, so I think turning around to the people around me were like, yes, 41 minutes, we've gone 2-1 up. We haven't gone in 1-1. I think we kind of weathered the storm in the first half. I think Everton had, like you said, not necessarily more chances, but certainly more of the kind of physical play. And then I've written in big, in a big box here, did we score with our only 2 chances in the first half? And I think we probably did. Richarlison really had 2 shots and scored them both. But it was still nice to go in kind of at half-time 2-1 up. What did you think over half-time, HG? Did you think there was going to be any changes or anything that was going to develop early on second half?
I wanted to see Sarr come on. I probably would have done it. See, it's one of those weird things. Like, I wanted Bentancur to play more. I still think Bentancur is a better 6 than Højbjerg is, and I'm surprised that we're trying. Like, watching Højbjerg play the 6 is like watching Skip try and do it. It's just not his game. Yeah. He's not really one to play quick, simple passes. He tries, and they don't work out, and people get mad. I mean, this is the funny thing. People get mad at Højbjerg for not doing well at the job he's been asked to do. But we know Ange isn't going to get mad at him because we know he's trying to do what Ange wants. That's the crazy thing, right? He is trying to do it. It's just not his game. And I think Bentancur is better. His skill set is better for that kind of play. But then we needed Sarr, and if you bring on Sarr for Højbjerg, then you're thinking, okay, well, but we know Bentancur is not going to last the 90 most likely. And so you're thinking, okay, do you know what I mean? It's kind of Højbjerg plays because he's fit and he can do 90 minutes pretty much guaranteed, whereas the other midfielders, you're not so sure. You're not so sure if Maddison can really do it, if Bentancur can really do it. And as everyone has said in the comments, it's kind of they're playing because they're the ones that are left. And it's Højbjerg or Skip for the other role pretty much. And we've seen them switch. One has started and one has been on the bench pretty much for the last 3 or 4 games. So I don't think I expected too much different. I still thought that even though we were 2-1 up, we were struggling in midfield. We couldn't keep the ball when Everton were, again, making it difficult for us, like you'd expect them to do, like you'd expect any team to do. Like Everton, having not scored for 3.5 games or whatever it was, you kind of knew that they've got to work their way out of it. They're going to have to make it difficult. They're going to have to, kick and harry and push and do the things that you'd expect a team scrapping to do. Like this isn't anything we shouldn't have expected. But I felt at halftime maybe not a change. But if I was going to make one, then I probably would have made one of the ones that were made at 64. I think the changes that we made after an hour could have been made at halftime. I'm not surprised that they weren't, but those were the clear changes to make.
Agreed.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was saying to a friend next to me, I was surprised that really Johnson or kind of maybe even Højbjerg came out second half. It's just because the changes that he made at Brentford, if we think back to Brentford game on Wednesday, didn't he? He brought Skip and Højbjerg on at half time because everyone on Twitter was losing their mind. How could we be losing and bring on those 2 players? But it worked, which is why I think part of why Højbjerg started this game as well. Yeah, Lo Celso, the lesser spotted, left-footed Lo Celso. Remember him?
I think to me is that if we've got issues in midfield, which we have had for lots of reasons, then if you're going to play with wingers, they have to get involved. And I just don't feel that they did. Like if the ball was played to them, they felt happy to just kind of keep possession. So like Werner would kick it back to a doggy and Johnson would kick it inside to whoever. But
they take anybody on. We were constantly shouting, take them on. I remember saying to Johnson, take him on. It was that kind of shouting that at them.
I did a stats analysis of our wing play. So I'm going to give it to you just because I did it. So you're going to have to sit through it. But it echoes it echoes your point. Okay. So, Johnson started off a little brightly because he actually did take someone on. I think he megged him, got down the field with creating a chance and instantly lost the ball in the next defender. That's the last time he took someone on the entire game. Johnson had 20 touches. Okay. He was targeted. And I don't mean passed to, I mean, somebody attempted to get him the ball 4 times.
No.
The entire game.
Wow.
There were a couple times where he was open, and I remember Madison plays a tricky ball to Udogie in the final third, who's got a man on him. He loses it, and Johnson has acres of space. And I'm seeing this start to develop and thinking, okay, I recently played a really good over 40 team, and we rarely ever lost. But I was not an impactful player for that at 53 years old. I can promise you, because even if I'm 40, I'm not that talented as all these other Hispanic players are. But I'm there because I'm consistent, I'm a defender and all that sort of stuff. But there are many times that I'm open, and they look at me like, yeah, I got better options. So I mean, and I wonder, we've all played some sports or seen, things where like certain people don't get the ball, and there's a reason. I'm just wondering. That's 4 targets. Werner was targeted 14 times.
Wow.
Kulu comes on in the 64th.
Mm-hmm.
He has 4 targets in 14 minutes. So he equaled Johnson's targets in 14 minutes versus the 64. Now Johnson did get involved. He had 3 recoveries. He got fouled once. He committed 2 fouls. He had a couple of nice defensive actions deep in his own end. But I mean, he had 20 touches, none in the box, no shots. Werner had 26 touches, 3 in the
whole
box.
Game.
Yeah, 46 touches for the entire game. Okay. Udogie had 80 plus, Madison had 80 plus, Porro had 80 plus, Bentancur had like 45, double both those, right? Now, granted, they're midfielders, so I get the difference. But I mean, Werner, there was multiple times. Let me see. Pedro passed to Johnson once. Destiny passed to Werner twice, and those are attempts.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. There was only one time that our wingers took someone on. It was early in the game, Johnson. Otherwise, Werner didn't take anyone on unless the ball was played in front of him, where they could run onto it. And the one time they did that, Werner was offside by 10 feet. Pierre plays him in. Pierre has a really nice play in midfield. He probably should have not passed it because it probably was even clear to him he was offsides, but you never know. So he plays the ball through. Werner goes in on goal, has a horrific effort, right?
Yeah.
And yet he was 10 feet offsides. So I mean,
can I just I don't want to. I'm going to interrupt. I don't want to.
Yeah, no, you go. Just go
ahead. But there was the chance in the second half, right? Johnson's still on the pitch. Right, Werner's still on the pitch. I think it can't have been. Yeah, it would have been Bentancur. Plays a first-time ball over the top for Johnson to run on.
Yep.
Right. So it's Johnson versus Mikolenko. Johnson's faster than everyone else on the pitch, almost certainly. Gets to the ball first, and I'm thinking, okay, control it. And he doesn't control it. He hits it first time across the box. And I'm thinking, okay. And then you see Werner coming in, and you're thinking, goal. This has got goal written all over it because I've seen Doherty and Sessegnon with that move.
Yep.
Right, so I think something's going to happen here, and Werner just waits for the ball and allows. I think Godfrey
he holds up. He starts to slow up to wind up to hit it instead of running through it on goal. Yeah. He actually starts slow, and you could see him like it was almost like winding up to hit a slap shot like a hockey player, and he gives whoever the chance to Godfrey, whoever it was, to.
I'm sorry. How do I put this? I didn't mind Werner as a loan signing because I was like, okay, at the end of the season, he'll get a few chances, right? Yep. I don't want him long term. I've not seen anything to think that he's worthy of a long term shot. I don't care how cheap the deal is. Sorry, that's the type of thing where you get your body between the player and the ball. So if you can't score, you get taken out. There was a game, was it Chelsea Wolves yesterday? When Wolves got their penalty, and the guy Cunha, who's not a winger, right,
just
gets the ball,
Gusto.
Kicks it into space, torches Gusto, and then basically says, "All right, you try and slide in. I will stand where you have to go with your tackle to get to the ball," and he gets taken out cleanly for a penalty. And I don't think Cunha is a wonderful player, but that's basic football smarts. You should know what a defender has to do, and you should be willing to take it for the team and get taken out if it means that a penalty is given. And so for Werner to wait it just infuriated me so much because like we weren't creating a huge amount, but that was a massive chance. If he gets there first and he misses, okay, I mean that's bad enough. But to not get there when you are faster than Godfrey, when you have a five-yard head start on Godfrey, and then not even get anywhere near, it's unforgivable almost. I'm sorry, like I genuinely feel that way. There's a reason why, like Werner will score. Werner can score goals if he's on the last shoulder and the ball is played through and he doesn't have to think about it. But if there's any kind of thought process involved, fails. And I think that's why he failed at Chelsea. And I think that's why he's not playing games at Leipzig before he came to Spurs, is that you kind of want people that are smart. And I just don't see it from either one of them, sadly. You can have all the physical gifts that they have, but if they're not good on the ball, or if they're not willing to get involved, it might as well be me, frankly. It might be me out there.
Because we said, didn't we, at City, he was running for the balls, but that he wasn't being given them. And then at Brentford, he was sort of utilised a little bit more. I saw people saying,
sorry, like make the runs, get involved, brilliant, right? If the ball doesn't get there, then fine. But it appears that they're both willing to just stand 5 or 10 yards away from the fullback, close to the touchline. They will offer themselves, but they're not really involved in the game, and they need to be involved more.
Yeah.
Look, honestly, Darren, seriously, if I watch a game of football and think, I'm sorry, but I could do what you're doing, right? Which is nothing. Let's face it, I'm not a good footballer. I'm 6'3". I don't mind putting my body around, but look, I'm not going to be in those positions. But I would know. I've watched enough football to know that you have to get involved in the game. And when players don't, it annoys me. Like everyone knows how I feel about Lamela and how I didn't think Lamela was any good, but at least he got involved. At least he was trying. The fact that he couldn't do anything with the ball when he got it annoyed me. But you couldn't argue about the work rate. You couldn't argue with the effort. It was effort that I would expect to see from someone who cares about whether the football game's going to, whether you're going to win the game or not. Like, I mean, there are various players at every level who are that kind of, they will kick and they will do whatever they can do to win that game. And there are players, probably like Hoddle, if I'm honest, who, they want the ball and they're not really interested in the rough and tumble of the game, but give them the ball and they will do something amazing. And those players have a place. But if you don't offer either, there is a massive problem. Like, I don't expect him and Werner to be Glenn Hoddle incarnate or Brennan Johnson to suddenly play like De Bruyne, but I do expect more than what we're seeing. I do. And like, I'm not paying money to go to these games, but I'm watching it thinking, yeah, we're struggling. We're playing with 9, just as Jack said.
What do we make? Who's at fault for the Everton second equaliser? Jack?
So there was a lot. I heard people talk about they thought Romero was all right. Who's at fault? First of all, we give possession away. All right, let's start there. And then Decky gives away a foul that I just don't understand why. I don't. Again, the one thing that they have not been able to do all half, except for one time, is actually develop a chance from open play.
Mm.
So, and Decky has a history. He's not the only person, but he has a history of giving away fouls out on that side. I don't know what it is, but part of it is just, hey, someone who works, someone who cares, someone who puts his body out there. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I don't get me wrong. And he played better than people gave him credit for. Again, when I rewatch it, he actually had some very nice, he created a couple chances, but you can't give this team a foul at that point of the game. If you do everything to avoid, I'd rather them, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to say this, but that aside, then on the play, there were people talking about that Romero was held or like somebody got on top of him or something like that. I didn't see it. I just think he got under the ball and got fooled by the flight of it or something, and unfortunately flicks it backwards. He has no intention of doing that, and his reaction didn't seem to indicate that he thought he was fouled. He basically was saying, yep, that's on me. I'm sorry. He's wearing the captain's armband and he didn't seem to be complaining at all. So he just, flicks it up. And I mean, it's a little harsh maybe to criticize Vicario, because again, the flight of the ball changes in a way that it's flying to your defender. You don't expect it to come back to your far post. So, I think it's one of those fluke situations where a team like Everton, if you give them, I don't know how many corners they had, but if you give them 10 corners and 8 free kicks going into your box, guess what? They're probably going to get a goal or two. That is Sean Dyche to a T. Yeah. And you just can't concede them.
When we play with a high line as well, it reminded me of Villa when they had free kicks, and even if we go back to the Brentford game on the first day of the season and those sort of, swinging. But I didn't realise Romero had headed it up into the air, must have been, until I watched it back on Match of the Day. And when Vicario ends up in a heap in the net, we thought that the VAR was that he'd been fouled again, but realising it was it was for offside, wasn't it? But then watching it back yesterday, Richarlison doesn't track him, does he? Doesn't track the guy who kind of fumbles it in on the line either. It's just being at the game and being at the Wolves as well. It reminded us of the poor game management at the end, and we've kind of talked all season about how we don't really have game management. We don't. Maybe apart from maybe the first couple of games in the season where Ange could bring people on to see the game out. So I remember he's bringing Højbjerg on a few times, and since the injuries, we have been making substitutions to try and get a goal or to get 2 goals. It just reminded me very much of how the kind of end game management wasn't there, because at Wolves I remember Dyer oofed it out and they took a quick throw in. I remember Davis got beaten. It wasn't Davis's fault, but it was all just really quick, and it just reminded us of that. And being at Everton last season as well, when Moura made the mistake, he came on as a sub, didn't he, and made some mistake, and then Everton went and scored, and it just felt very, very similar to that. Go on.
It's just funny. I saw a lot of people complaining about the subs that Ange made in the second half, and I think we can, forget the first 2, because I think Sarr coming on helped the team. And apart from that one half chance that Chamiti had, Everton really had nothing in that second half. Vicario was claiming the crosses. It felt as if we're going to see it out. It genuinely did. We were never comfortable, but we were much more comfortable than we had been.
And we had chances.
And we had chances. And so then the next set of subs, did we make all 5? I can't remember. But I know that I know that Skip came on for Højbjerg, right? And Brian came on for Werner. And who else?
Dragoshin.
Yeah, Dragoshin. So
Dragoshin came on, right?
That was a sub I didn't understand. Go ahead.
Yeah, but this I don't personally I saw a lot of people saying, well, we should never take off Højbjerg with 5 minutes to go, and we should Brian for Werner, but we all know Brian can't hold the ball. And I'm thinking, I'm sorry. At that point, I watched those minutes of Brian Hill, and he got much more involved than Werner ever did. At least, if involvement is all you're wanting, if that's all you can offer because you've not got the ball, then you can at least offer it. So I don't the Dragoshin sub. Playing 3 at the back doesn't seem to really make any sense. And Spurs have given away. I mean, Man United could have beaten us when Dragoshin came on, and that's not to blame Dragoshin. But suddenly we're playing a back 5, and we're not looking better for it. You'd imagine that we should look better. But although Everton are good in the air, Branthwaite is what, 6'6"? He's their biggest player. Why is Richarlison on him? Why is not one of the centre halves on him? What? Those are the kind of decisions. I blame that more than the substitutions that were made. Playing Skip and Sarr as your midfield 2 for 10 minutes. Okay, maybe it's not ideal, but it shouldn't cost you the game, right? It really shouldn't cost you the game. And I don't feel like those subs did. It just it felt like a perfect storm of nonsense at the end. The free kick shouldn't have been given away. You can blame Kulusevski for that because that was dumb on him, right? Just kick the ball out, kick it upfield, do whatever, right? But from then, the ball comes in. It's a decent ball into an area, and Everton get lucky that it hits Romero and goes to the back post where it falls perfectly for Branthwaite. Anywhere else, it's not a goal, right? If it doesn't go as far as Branthwaite, then maybe Vicario can claim it. If it goes further, then obviously Branthwaite can't get it. But it falls perfectly onto his head, and it sucks. But I don't think you can really blame Spurs for any of that, bar Kulusevski giving the foul away in the first place. After that, it was just one of those things that should never happen because you shouldn't be giving fouls away. But I don't think I look at Romero and think, oh, he should be stronger. And I don't blame Vicario for not getting across, because he's got to run across the whole goal, which is just not really going to happen. It's just annoyingly one of those things that kind of goes against you when you don't make good decisions.
Yeah. And so go on, Jack.
I was going to say, I agree with everything you said, except the problem that the fault of any one individual. It's a sequence of events that you can talk about. I don't understand why Richie stays when you can bring Dragoshin in. I would leave Pierre in and take Richie off. If that's going to be the sub, I think that makes a lot more sense. I'd love Ange to tell me what he knows more than we do.
Maybe because he was on a hat trick. Maybe because he's on a hat trick.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I would hope that's not the answer, but maybe it is. I don't know. But here in this particular instance, we're like, okay, we a fluke goal, and I agree with that. But the reality is that we are now at 18 points dropped from winning positions, which leads the league. And we are now 8 goals conceded from in stoppage time.
Yeah.
And that is an all-time Premier League record. And we still have a lot of games to go. Now,
weirdly though, with that
stat,
I've got that stat written down here as well, but we've actually won 7 points and lost 5 points when we've conceded in the 90th minute. So I was reading that on the train coming back and I was like, oh, we've conceded 8 times in 90th minutes, the Premier League record. But the Chelsea game was already dead anyway. The City, Sheffield United and Liverpool ones were positive results.
Yep. And
then Everton. So yeah, it makes it look like all the eight that was to lose games. It wasn't. Sometimes it was to win them. But yeah, it's not good enough. Not good enough.
Yeah. So we're to your point, game management, Becky. Is there something to this? And my feeling is, again, my big picture is I am thrilled that we're 5th and there's distance to 6. I am thrilled that the play is as good as it is. I mean, this is all we should all be really happy as Spurs fans as to where this team is and how well it's doing.
We're 5 points better off than last season in the same point.
I mean, this in a world of, hey, if you told me this is where we're going to be at the start of the season, I say, man, the guy's a genius. He's doing wonders. And then you add to the fact that how many people have not been available. You're just like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
But the things to work on clearly are, our set piece defending and Vicario, how we're going to protect him better. And you're right, controlling games to the end. And I think to your point, HG, or maybe you said it, Becky, I think you did, is if the way we see games out is not to camp in our box, is to hold the ball. I mean, that's how you see that. That's how City and other teams kill games. They don't give you the ball back.
Yeah.
And we don't have the players executing the strategy. I don't think it's that Ange ball has been sussed out or whatever people are saying. I just don't think that we are executing the game plan the way it should be.
And it might be a little bit of fatigue. I'm not making excuses for them because everyone had a midweek game, but it may have been the early kickoff and a bit of fatigue, and because of all the injuries. And, like Ange keeps saying, and we said it's every show, this is the first season, and, let's see things in the second season. I think it's like you said, though, the amount of times we have scored first, and now we've got this record of 35 consecutive games that we've scored in. It just feels like it's a lot of ifs and buts. It's like, oh, if we'd hung on at Wolves, and, it's just a bit like, oh, that's how it kind of feels. Go on.
So, I mean, and that's typical fandom, right? Like, we all remember the points that we've given away, rather than those games where we got the points and maybe we didn't really deserve it.
Yeah.
And in that early run of, was it like eight wins in 10? Like, there were a number of those games that we probably didn't deserve to win. The Liverpool one is the obvious one, but like, again, Man United, if they score first in that game, we're in trouble. Right, they didn't take their chances, and we got one, and then suddenly it was an own goal. I think it was the second. So, like, I mean, there's a comment here about, like, I don't feel we've played particularly well for a while. I'm not sure we've played a whole game well all season, if I'm honest. We beat Brentford because for 10 minutes everything went in. That's basically it. Everything went in for 10 minutes, and we went kind of, I don't want to say this, but we went for it in the second half.
Newcastle was quite one-sided.
Okay.
That's probably the only one, maybe.
Yeah. I can say that, but it's interesting that, like, at no point have we had a full squad, right? We've had 20 players that we think would be Ange's best 20 available, right? Where in theory you could look at them and say, right, this player is going to come on and perform that role, and he's going to keep the ball, and we're not going to lose anything by bringing people on. And clearly, I think a lot of people feel like we do lose things. Like, Højbjerg goes off having not played very well, and we bring Dragoshin on. Like, at no point was anyone thinking, oh, Højbjerg going off is going to kill us because he hadn't played well. And yet, as soon as the goal goes in, everyone's like, oh, why did we take Højbjerg off? Well, hang on a second. He played badly most of the game. Everyone would say that. So, like, both things can't be true. It's just that the players we're bringing on offer different things, and I don't feel like many of them, like, if you take the 16 players that played against Everton, how many of those 16 do we think are going to be here next season? A number of them won't be. Right, Højbjerg almost certainly won't be. Brian Hill almost certainly won't be. Werner probably won't be. Like, I saw us linked with Rafinha, so you'd think that maybe Johnson's. I mean, it sounds awful because we paid a lot of money for him. But if we're looking to upgrade, I think there are clear players in that lot where you think, okay, well, maybe next year they're not around. And even when everyone is fit, they're not involved. Like, is Werner really going to come on for the last 10 minutes of a game if Son is back? No, Son is going to play those 10 minutes, right? Like, we're not going to take Son off at any point. So it just, it's frustrating because we know that we could be better. But I just, like Jack said, it's like Spurs are in a very good position. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Is it like Captain Hindsight when it comes to subs? Of course. I don't feel like the subs had any role in Everton equalising.
Agreed.
Any of them, right? It was just, unfortunately, a run of. I don't want to say what I want to say, but I want to keep it PG. But it just wasn't good, right? There was nothing we really could have done about it, and so I don't know. Like, I know that Spurs fans, we often look for people to blame. Like, why did we allow Everton to bully us? Everton are good at bullying teams. Like, Everton
teams are.
Yeah, and they deserve to get something from the game at Spurs a few weeks ago. Like, so they're not a bad outfit. They know their strengths and they will use them. And Spurs,
they're a mid-table team.
Yeah, and Spurs
playing at home.
Yeah, can't. We don't deal with it. You don't see Man City get out-muscled. And it's, as Jack said, it's because they have the ball and they can keep the ball and they can buy fouls and they can play the refs and they can play the game, but you don't see them get bullied, right? In the way that Arsenal have been bullied in the past and Spurs have been bullied in the past. And, like, of course, I'm not upset that we're not City, because why would we be after 6 months? But still, it just shows you what we need to do, how we need to get better. And a lot of it is mentality of us. It's not necessarily quality. It's just understanding that, like, we are going to buy fouls and we are going to relieve the pressure by doing that in the way that Kane often did for Spurs. It's just about making those choices, and we haven't been able to do it. And my personal belief is it's more to do with the fact that people aren't around than it is to, like, Spurs aren't good enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's why it was a shame. Kulusevski gave away the foul, because I thought on Wednesday at Brentford he did hold it up a couple of times. Near the end, when we were kind of hanging on, he was playing the ball out, and I remember saying to Jack, "Oh, he got fouled like the days that when Kane used to do that." Yeah, I think they just switched off, didn't they? And it was, like I said, very similar to Wolves. The atmosphere was building. They didn't really kind of cope with that, and like you said, it's kind of a culmination of things that led to it. Really, no luck. We always need luck, and we didn't. So
Everton had that half chance that they didn't score, but outside of that, it's not as if we were hanging on.
It wasn't much. No,
right? Like, and so it's unfortunate and it sucks because right now we should be 5 points off the lead instead of 7. And 5 points off the lead is not a bad place to be in. It really isn't. But 7 feels
a lot.
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity, and that sucks. Yep. But we get 3 points against Brighton. Everyone's going to be feeling better. But Brighton did the same to us a few weeks ago, and they beat us quite convincingly.
So our next 3 home games are Brighton, Wolves, and Palace. So Palace are a bit of having a shocker, aren't they, at the moment? But Brighton, after they beat Palace on Saturday, didn't they? But they've kind of had a few poor games as well. Wolves seem to be kind of coming out the other side, beating Chelsea yesterday as well. Jack, what do you make of our next 3 home games? How do you think we'll get on?
The same thing I always think is there is maybe, other than Sheffield, possibly there is no easy game in the Premier League right now. There's just no one, because when we get around to Palace, I'm sure they'll have a new manager, and that'll always be, that's always our lot in life, it seems. So there are no easy matches. Wolves, I watched a good chunk of that Chelsea match, and again, Chelsea's poor, but they manhandled them. I mean, they had their way with it, and I'll tell you, balls in the channel for a guy like Neto. I'm glad that I hope Mickey's fully healthy and playing in that game, because he's going to need it, because Neto can move. So the reality is that you got 3 home games against basically teams that are below you in the table. If you have serious thoughts of sniffing top of the table, you have to take 9 points. But realistically, I think what we're really probably thinking is, we got to stay in the top 4. HG, you can give me the coefficient update as to whether or not 5th is going to get us a Champions League spot or not. But I would say, even, I know people are making a big deal out of got to be in the Champions League, got to be in the Champions League, and the finances. My feeling is that I don't want to play on Thursday night, but just being in Europe is crucial. And if we can get top 4, if you can get 7 points out of these next 9, I think that would be a very successful run. Obviously, they're all winnable, but the way we play, and like you're saying, what we just saw with Brentford and Everton, which are 2 good sides, we concede goals, and until we stop conceding goals, it's really hard to expect that you're going to win a game, because we know we'll score, but the question is, get in a situation where you have to score 3 to win, maybe 4, and that's just not where you want to be. You want to be able to beat teams 2-0, 3-1, and not get into these situations where a 93rd minute ball into the box slings off your central defender's head or into the far post. I mean, that's just not where you want to be in that situation. You want to be, these games need to be done and dusted at that point, and we're just not in that spot. And I'm hoping that, obviously, what brilliant is that Richie is 9 and 8.
Yep.
And half of those with Son not on the pitch. So he's playing a lone forward line with not a lot of threat that I don't think defenses are really having to worry too much about what's coming on the other side. So yet, despite he's probably our best threat, he's getting goals. I think that's really great. And again, I think that I worry a little bit about Basuma and whether or not he's really well, and he didn't play much in AFCON. So if he's healthy, then he shouldn't be too tired. Son, of course, is going to be completely knackered, and it might be a little while before he's really back to fitness for us. But if we can get stability in the midfield and we can start holding the ball better, I feel positive about it. And I think that, back 5 are playing brilliantly. I'm not worried about that. We just need to get some stability in midfield and hopefully get some threat from the wings. And I don't know if that's got to be a coaching thing, because for me, Johnson is a player who has shown flashes of real skill. I mean, one of the first time we ever saw him was that ball he took over the shoulder in the Arsenal game, drops it and then roofs it in stride. Now he's offsides. But that is an elite level of skill. So I don't know what needs to happen to get him more of those opportunities, and whether it's his fault or the assistant's fault, I'm not smart enough to figure that out. But I think there's a lot of work that he's done on the training pitch to get these guys playing more progressive football and not relying on you doggies running 70 yards or Pedro hitting the ball from 25 out and burying it in the upper corner to save us to get through. We just need a little bit more consistency from the front line, holding the ball and possessing the ball in the final third. Because one of the things that I couldn't believe it, and I'm taking an app on my phone, so this could be I'm not Opta here, but I found that freaking Everton had more passes in our half than we had in theirs, and I don't remember the last time that happened.
Wow.
They had more touches in our box than we had in theirs. And I can't remember the last time. We at a certain point of this season, we were so far in front, and touches in the opponent's box, it wasn't even funny. Now that was probably a while ago, but those things need to be addressed, and that's what Ange and his coaching staff have to figure out.
And Ange was fuming, wasn't he, at the end? I noticed. I haven't seen all of the interviews, but I noticed he was fuming. Now, whether it was with the way they conceded the free kick or whether the game kind of played out all together, he was fuming. And I think he would probably sit back and say there's been missed opportunities here. And although they're not getting ahead of themselves, it's just it feels like we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but there has been opportunities we're thinking, if we, like I said earlier in the show, if we'd done that and if we'd done that. I read somewhere yesterday people saying if we hadn't got the injuries at Chelsea, they felt we would still be kind of first, second in the league. There was lots of discussion in the way end about where we would finish. And I said I still think we would finish third. that was obviously before yesterday's result against Liverpool. But I think when everyone's back fit and when everyone is firing like they were at the beginning of the season, I think we've got more than they have to finish third, which would be lovely.
I mean,
HG?
to go back to what Jack was asking about the Champions League thing, right now England are in third position. You need to get top two to get that fifth spot. We're in third, but we're very close to the Germans that are in second. So if you're looking at all the European games between now and then, obviously we have to do a little bit better than the Germans because we've had more teams in Europe and a couple of teams are already out completely.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd think that City, Liverpool, Villa, they should all get to the latter stages of those competitions. Brighton might surprise us, West Ham, hopefully Arsenal lose their next game. But still, it's not out of the question that we get that Champions League extra spot, which obviously would mean the top five, and Spurs are in a very good position to finish top five. But
I'd rather play in the Europa League than see Arsenal win the Champions League, of course. So that goes without saying.
So it's one of those things. It's weird because we all know that if Spurs want to win the league, right, which is clearly Ange's goal, he's not here to make up numbers. He's not here to get top four. He wants to win the league, and we know that that's more likely maybe if we're not playing Champions League, if we're playing Europa League, even if it's Thursday. I don't know. You're able to rotate your squad a lot more. Like Arsenal had their title run last year, and they were in the Europa League for half the season. Yeah. And weirdly enough, it was the Europa League that killed them because that's when Saliba got injured, and they went up. They tailed off massively. But still, you just think, do I really want Spurs playing massive games every 3 days from the middle of September onwards? If you want to be the team that can go on and win the title, I'm not sure I do, weirdly. I don't think Spurs are strong enough yet to do that. Even if with another transfer window in the summer and all the activity we want to see happen, I'd be nervous. It's not as if I'm not unhappy with the Champions League. Of course, I'd love it. But still, it feels like if it's step by step, then we'll do a year in the Europa. That seems fine. And then the following year, then, okay, you've got to be strong enough. You've got to be one of those clubs that can perform in both competitions. That's the idea. Maybe
what happened in Newcastle this year.
There you go. Right, you take the opportunities when they come, but it's weird. The question here from Norman. I'm guessing that's not really your name, obviously, because of the porridge connection. But yes, frankly, it will be, because no matter what the competition is, right? It's beneficial for Spurs because no matter what the European competition is, the points count the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if Villa win a game in the Conference League, it counts the same as Man City winning a game in the Champions League, even though in theory it's a much easier proposition for the 7th best team in England to beat the 5th best team in, I don't know where, Holland. That's the idea, right? They value all competitions the same because it shows the strength of the nation, which is what they're going for, right? So yeah, it would be good if all of the Arsenal can lose the game. I'm okay with that. But then if everyone else gets to the semi-finals, we're laughing. I mean, that's it. They get to the semi-finals, play each other, we're laughing. I don't really care if Liverpool win the Europa League. I don't really care if Villa win the Conference League. Good luck to them. It is beneficial for Spurs. And yeah, this is it. The comment about Champions League. I mean, it's not even just Champions League. I think Europa League has the same system next year. I think all 3 competitions have this 36 team nonsense, whatever they're going to do. So yeah, it's a lot of games, and so I don't know. I'm focused on Spurs should get top 5. If that equals Champions League, then brilliant, right? We'll have deserved it, however it happens. But I'm more worried about getting 4th than I am about Man United catching us, because I think Man United are probably the only team that could.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And we're 6 points plus a massive goal difference ahead. So you would hope, and they don't have to play us, so they can't gain 3 on us either in that way. So it feels like Spurs should be looking onwards and upwards. It's just frustrating that after dropping 2 points in the 90-odd minute again, that we can't be dreaming more than we already are.
Well, that seems a good place to end it there, dreaming on where we would like to be. Thank you, everyone that's been watching. If you haven't already, please hit the like and the subscribe button. I think there might be a show midweek, but there'll be one on Friday before the Brighton game. Trying to think what game's next. HG, thanks for joining us today.
Not a problem. Just to let everyone know, the rest of the cheese room are at some cheese room event right now, having pictures
they've
taken.
been WhatsApping me loads of pictures. Yeah.
Have they really? Okay, I haven't seen those,
Yeah.
but yeah. So they're having a load of fun in somewhere in South
Mhm.
London. I didn't even think it was possible to have fun in South London, but they seem to have found South London is the back end of beyond, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, they've had a good night, and we've had a good night on here talking to you lot. So thanks for watching. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks, Beck.
Okay, thanks for being on. Jack, thanks for your stats. Your stats were like my stats, but my stats were all written on a piece of paper, and a lot of my stats were the same as your stats.
Yeah, mine
Thanks
were
for
on
being
a
on.
piece of paper, but I can't read my own writing, so then I have to type them up there before I forget what I actually wrote. So,
Jack, those stats were great. Like, because that's the kind of stuff I want to know. Like, if I think players aren't involved, I want to know why. Is it because we can't get them the ball? Is it because they're not getting involved? Like, there are all these, all these reasons as to why. So, like,
yeah.
I love those stats. I
Yeah.
want more of those, please.
And I think also as well, when we, like I said, everyone in the ground pretty much went away feeling like we'd lost, and then to think, well, we've got these 17 games where we scored first, and we've got 35 games in a row we scored. There are some positive things to it. It's just it's the points, isn't it? We just should have had 3 points, and it just felt like a loss. But yeah, thanks, Jack, for being on.
In fact, Peter Crouch even said Spurs are hate something to the effect of they'll hate that they lost that game, and no one in the studio corrected them.
Yeah, because and this is the crazy thing. Like when I do my little Facebook thing after the game, right? Like I didn't want to write a huge amount because I didn't want to think about it too much. However, like I felt like Spurs were a little bit to blame for the fact that we didn't see the game out. But in no way am I upset at Spurs this season right now. Like I can be miserable about one thing and be like, okay, like yeah, that sucked, that was annoying, but I'm still Ange in. There's no way I'm going to be Ange out. I can't imagine ever really being Ange out, if I'm honest. Like even if we're trying to win games and we don't, okay, right? Like, but if we're doing everything that we can to win games, I can't be upset. If I feel like there are reasons as to why we're not doing everything we can, then I'll say it. But at no point am I Ange out. And like it's just like we want to be number one. Like I'm happy with fifth. But it's not, again, I want to win the league. I want to be like Ange. I want Spurs to be that club that says, like, we're not looking to finish top four. We'll take top four. Like Arsenal aren't going to be happy with third or second or whatever. They want to win the league. And as Becky said, Spurs, their squad is probably better than Arsenal's. And so let's just get those points on the board and see those games out and win like champions do. And Spurs, sadly, we're not there yet, but we will be. I do think we will be.
I don't know. Liverpool without Klopp, that helps a little bit.
Imagine if
goes to Barcelona.
Leaves. Yeah.
I know you're opposed to that.
But I want that. Like the idea of that could happen because then next year would be a massive free-for-all. Yeah. Like Liverpool without Klopp will be less than they are. And Salah will leave too. Like Trent Alexander-Arnold's out of contract in 18 months.
Yeah,
like they all might think
Diaz back to play the left wing, and then we put Rafinha on the right wing, and we're all set, right?
Well, I just even if Spurs win the league because everyone else is having a bad season, I don't care. Do you think Leicester care that they won the league with only 81 points? Of course they don't, right? But you've got to beat the other teams, and if the other teams get weaker, brilliant. I'll take that. Like Chelsea, fantastic. I thought Chelsea would finish top 5 this season. I genuinely did. Not because I think Pochettino was amazing. I just think that they've got loads of players and they'll find a way to get those players working together. And they haven't. And it doesn't look like they're going to. But
just what Ray's put there on the screen. I read somewhere today that they can't sack Poch because that would push them over the FFP thing, and they've got to find this 100 million by June or something daft. So they can't even get rid of him either.
It'll cost them 10 million.
Yeah, and I've seen Chelsea fans say that they would rather lose 10 points than have Poch in charge. Like I don't like Rory Jennings. I don't watch his stuff very often, because it's just so biased and ridiculous. But watching him fall apart because Chelsea are terrible is well worth anyone's time. I can't do it in long periods because it's him, right? But I can handle 5 minutes of him. Like he's sitting there. I think today I saw him say he's dreaming of Mourinho returning, and everyone else is laughing in his face because Mourinho is finished. And he's like, yeah, but Pochettino's not any good. Mourinho's better than Pochettino. It's like, well, yeah, but do you want to go from 11th to 8th? Like, no. Like you want to go back to where you were, and there's no way Mourinho will come in if he can't spend money. Like it's just delusion beyond belief. And it's great seeing Chelsea fans realize that the only reason they were successful is because they cheated. They bought, was it 1.5 billion that Abramovich was allowed to write off
to
that should
loan
have
the
been
club?
paid back? I mean, the fact that the Americans are coming in and made things worse makes it even funnier. But
you're welcome.
Watching them realize, yeah, Jack, I don't throw you in that boat.
No, I'll take credit for it. I'm all for it.
It's nice watching people make bad decisions because, again, the Spurs have made some good ones, and that's why we are where we are. We just need to make some more good ones. And if Pep decides to go to Barcelona, I mean, I would rather live in Barcelona than Manchester, wouldn't you? It's a no-brainer.
Well, there's a great tweet that got circulated. The good news for Chelsea fans is that they have all these players till 2031 for them to figure out how to play.
Actually, like if you look at the wages, like I mean,
even to loan, because they couldn't loan, wasn't it? That was that guy they tried to loan out to Fulham, wasn't it? And I think someone said that it would cost them the amount of money they would cost just to loan him for 4 months, that it wouldn't even be his player, was obscene. And Fulham are not going to do that, and it didn't happen. And yes, they can't even loan him out, can they? We only had Ndombele to do that with, didn't we? Really, he's the only expensive one we've had to loan away. Really,
if you try to, I mean, I don't want to talk about Chelsea too long, and I know it's time to go to bed. But like the idea of Chelsea, like if you think about the money they've spent, you think about Caicedo, you think about Enzo Fernandez. You don't think about players like poor old Wesley Fofana, who's been injured most of his time at Chelsea, but they paid a load of money for him, and he's on 200 grand a week for like 8 years. Like it's serious, ridiculous what they're doing. Like I can't. I mean, I think it's fantastic, but when you really look at the numbers, the money they've put into players, like we're complaining about Ndombele, who cost us what 55 million, whatever it was, 60 million plus 200 grand a week. Wesley Fofana is a worse decision than Ndombele. Their revenue is the same as ours, right? And yet a player who can't get in the team because he's been injured and may not play every game, even if he was fit, is a worse financial decision than Ndombele was. I just, it's amazing. When you look at the numbers, they like at some point, our good old friend S Creek should be named Chelsea Creek because it really is where they are. They live in that creek.
But I think it's from looking. I was talking to people on Saturday. They were like, "Oh, why are Everton being so funny about it? They break the rules and they're going to get their comeups." And obviously, everyone then goes, "Well, what about Chelsea and what about City?" It is quite good for clubs that are run properly that the decisions are now being made, that they are being found out. Not necessarily City yet; it's a kind of different thing, isn't it? But certainly with the FFP, is that it does, because those clubs that are trying to be run properly, who did follow, and we went through, like you said, the doldrums, and we still are in doldrums. We haven't won anything yet, but we had that kind of more cautious approach that now, you know, I think we said last week's show, didn't we, that Dragusin was the highest transfer fee in the whole of January, and he became our player. So it is quite fun to see that actually they are doing something about these teams that just are a bit kind of fly by night with the money. It's just even more funny that it's popped on. It's Chelsea. I think on that we're gonna end. Yes. Thanks everybody. Thanks for watching, everybody. HG, will you press the buttons, please?
Oh, sorry, that is my job. I will press all the buttons. Let me just find the button, and I'll talk while I find the button. Here is the Cheese Room outro. Bye, everyone.
Come on, Spurs!
Bye.